Welcome, Dean.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I feel like since you're here in town, Zupke and I have done this a couple different times. We should put you in the hot seat, which is why you're right in the middle.
Okay.
We talked about our background. Your background is pretty similar to my upbringing. Not great. I think it'd be fun for the viewers to hear about your background and how you got into sales and living in Chicago selling vacuums.
Sure. I'd love to tell you about that. So, first of all, I grew up very much like you. Poor, didn't have any money, lived in the ghetto.
Government cheese.
Actually, not even cheese. A lot of times it was just that powdered stuff. And
Or as Franny says, the old mayo sandwich.
we used to have a jam sandwich. And so our jam sandwich was 2 pieces of bread and you jam them together. And that was it. That was our jam sandwich. So, but, we had a lot of fun, and playing in the alleys with the rats and the broken glass and everything. So then I was 15 years old. No, excuse me, I was 17 years old. And at that point, I was looking for back in the newspaper, and I looked at an ad and said, do you want to be an intern for Sara Lee Foods? And I was kind of a fat kid. I kind of liked Sara Lee, so I'm like, this would be cool.
Yeah, you said you wore Huskies growing up.
I did. I did wear some Huskies. And so when I saw the ad, I'm like, oh, man, this is cool. An internship. I'll go check it out. So I go in, and next thing you know, I'm interviewing, and they go, well, we're an affiliate of Sara Lee Foods. We're actually Electrolux vacuum cleaners, but
Gotcha.
exactly. We'd love to take you out. We'd love to show you what it's all about. And I'll never forget, we went straight door to door that day. From the interview, didn't have to go through any background check or anything, and right out to the field that day. And they showed me I sold something for not that I didn't sell it. The guy I was with sold it for $40. So it was probably a $2 commission. I thought I was rich. I was almost ready to retire. So at that point, I thought I was rich. I was like, oh, man, I probably made $2 in commission. But I was hooked. I was completely hooked at that point. And so from that point, I went on and had a great summer. It was a summer program because I was going to college and had a great summer. And the following year, I came back, had another great summer. And then I went on, and after I was done with school, I was trying to find a job, and I went out interviewing, and that day I didn't find a job, so I ended up back at that company. And I ended up spending 10 years of my life there, and it was the best 10 years of my life.
That's Electrolux, correct?
Electrolux, because it created the foundation of everything that I do today, or did in my career.
Sure. The only thing I was wishing you wore today, rather than some of this rare breed swag, was the old Electrolux throwover coat that you used to rock in the office.
Oh, yeah. It hasn't changed much. I mean, we used to have a tiger on the back of our coat, but it was the old silk coat with the tiger.
It was like the Ed Hardy, pre-Ed Hardy.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so, but, it was fun. But what I enjoyed the most about it was the excitement of going out there and just not knowing what you're going to make. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the week, you go, wow, this is a lot of money. And at the time, it wasn't a lot of money, but for me,
sure.
It was.
I'm just curious. I know we were just talking this week, and I know that you have a huge sales background. You have, 40 years in direct sales now. Do you feel like the skill set of learning to sell outweighed the skill set of learning to recruit and develop others?
So it's interesting you ask that, because at first, it was about sales. You had to be a great salesperson in order to make a living, to be in it long enough to understand what the business was about. But once I learned that, and I went into management with that company and eventually up from there to regional management. And what I realized was, it's not about what I can sell. It's about how many people can I recruit. And when I learned that sales is all about recruiting, or building a sales company is about recruiting, I never cared about a personal sale after that point again.
Yeah, we were talking about this recently too, in that rare breed kind of shift that we're making culturally. And although I know you may be a little bit older than our average candidate, although we hire everybody, if we spliced you into 3, I think those are a lot of the folks that we're looking for, is that younger generation, the ones that want to go and make their first stab at a career, make some real money out of college, those that may have went to college, got a degree, and have no idea what they're doing.
So, and that's what keeps me the most excited about this business even today, because I never look at how many people fail in this business, because, if they would have looked at me going, hey, here's a shy guy that doesn't, they should have never hired me at 17 years old, because I was the wrong candidate. But someone took an opportunity on me, and it changed my life. And so for me, when I'm interviewing or running an office, it's about, man, I don't know if they're going to make it or not, but if I hired 100 people and only one changed their life, that was me. So it excites me.
It reminds me of an old story out of Denver, and I believe I remember this correctly. Lance went to do an interview with Eric Janowski, and I believe he put him in the do not hire pile. and ended up calling the guy back because he was a little bit disorganized and ended up showing up on a Monday. And that's a guy who's been with us for the past, 14 years now?
Yeah, and so many people when they walk into the office, you don't know who's going to be successful or not because to me, and maybe Brandon, tell me your thoughts on it, but I never could tell who could be successful, who couldn't be successful, because to me it's all about the determination and drive they have internally, not about how they look, how they interviewed, how they came in. It's when it's 8 o'clock at night and the rain is coming sideways, who's going to stay out because either they have to because they were broke or they want to because they understand the importance of making money and supporting a family. But what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I know we talk about this all the time with manager interviews, and obviously when we're running teams interviewing individual sales reps, you can have someone extremely sharp walk through the front door and think, man, I got an all-star coming through. But none of that means anything if they're not willing to work. They can have all the skill set in the world. They can look the part. My brother always used to say they're a really good-looking tall guy. For some reason, that was the confidence builder in his mind. Reality is we don't know until rubber meets the road and they're actually out there doing it. So I have people ask me all the time, what makes a successful salesperson or successful manager here? And I always say my number one thing is work ethic. And the reality is I agree with you. I should have never been hired in sales either. I was shy, introvert, don't like talking to people. And at the end of the day, the only reason I got into it is I saw it as a way to make some money. And so I was able to get out of my own shell to say, okay, I can go talk to a stranger and be able to go and make some money for myself.
Yeah.
And that's what pushed me through sales. The majority of the time, though, we don't know in just a 30-minute interview. We can ask all the right questions. We can try to determine if they've done things in their past that's competitive. A lot of times with like competitive sports, football, basketball, if they play at a high level, or military, because a lot of times you got the competitiveness, the brotherhood in the military. So we look for things like that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you just don't know until they're actually there, because you can't measure the size of someone's heart and determination until you can actually see it in action.
What's unusual is when we talk about our interview process, it's a 3-point touch. We do about a total of 2 hours of interviews, and some of us are going, man, this is the next best thing. This is the best guy, and they're a complete flop in week one. And alternatively, we have people that were going, I don't know if any of us are really sure on them. They land here, and they're the hardest worker, and they're the most successful every time.
And that's the thing with this rare breed thing is, are we going to attract those people that, are 18 years old that have never thought about what they're going to do, and they come in and they're nervous and they're scared, and hopefully the manager gives that person an opportunity, maybe takes them under their wing, and that person's life has changed forever. Whether they stay with us for the next 20 years or gives them enough confidence after 1-2 years to go do something completely different outside of what we do. But to me, it's opening the door of opportunity to these people.
Agreed. And it goes beyond just safe haven and just beyond knocking doors, right? I mean, you get a base knowledge of the sales world, and you were saying something about it earlier. You start to learn the sales world. This applies in almost every avenue across the board.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say, touching on that too, I think a mistake a lot of our branch managers make is they don't hire that shy 17-year-old or the kid that's an introvert. They look for the person that already has sales experience and is a plug and play. Dean, I know a lot of times you get dubbed as the king of delegation. And I personally know it's not because of laziness. I know it's because it's how do I get someone to do the job as 80% as well as I can so I can then go focus on the next thing.
Yeah.
And the reality is when you got into sales, eventually it was no longer about the sales. It was about finding people that could do it 80% as well, if not better, than you can. So then you could build a staff and then continue to grow from there. And I think that's where our sales managers, they look at these people and say, they're not as talented as I am, or they're not as talented as the all-star of my team, so I'm not going to hire them. When the reality is, I know your take on it, and my take is hire every person that's capable of doing the job, even if they're ugly, even if they've never had sales experience, maybe they're young, because I know we've talked about this in the past. Number one, our managers can't ever delegate if they're constantly out in the field selling. They never actually can build an office. But number two, part of management's job is to develop. And if you don't take those outliers, those people that never would get a chance elsewhere, you can never develop them.
That's for sure. And I'll tell you a funny story. This happened this morning. I was talking to Mike Richardson this morning, and he said, why don't we talk about how to go out in the field and recruit somebody? And I said, honestly, I've never, ever been in a restaurant where I try to recruit somebody. I go, because that would be me having to do some work, and I don't want to do any work at all. I always taught how I have 8 or 9 or 10 salespeople to go out and talk to people, because guess what? I can recruit one person, but 10 people can recruit 10 people today. So why go out there and do it myself when somebody else could do a better job, is my philosophy in that.
You know, it's funny, Brandon. I heard you say introvert. It reminded me of 12 years ago, a good learning lesson. I did an interview here in Kansas City when I was running that team. And I remember I did an interview, and I came back to you, and I think your brother was here at the time. I go, I don't know about this candidate. He wore cargo pants, a green shirt, and he was boring as hell. And if you remember, you guys hire him. He's got a background in sales or whatever it was, and he ended up being one of our top producers for years at that point.
Alfred?
Mm-hmm.
I do remember. Well, Dean, I think it is awesome hearing about your background, because I knew just personal stories along the way throughout our career, some of the upbringings and some of the similarities, but obviously a different mindset. It took me a while to get to that management mindset. I was very much a salesman at heart, and so it's really great to hear that and really just get an insight of who you are and what got you here.
Brandon, here's a not being broke anymore.
Absolutely.